Hey, what's up, guys? We are back. It is Sunday morning. We are about to start week. Well, we have started week 5. Not just the Thursday game, but we had a London game this morning. Real barn burning matchup there with the Falcons and the Jets playing each other. But there were some fantasy relevant pieces. It looks like it's a little one sided so far. But we've got football. We had football to wake up to. I actually watched like the a good part of the first quarter from bed this morning. That was kind of weird and kind of cool
Yeah.
at the same time. But we've got some updates. We've got some injury news. Unfortunately, there is a lot of it, and it seems like most of it is kind of hard to weed through. But the good news is it's looking like most of these guys are going to have a chance to play. It's just going to be more about deciding how we feel about it or what we want to do with our lineups and as a reaction. So um, we've got. I don't know. We're do position by position. Maybe you want to start with running backs. I think we've been doing that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Um,
You want me to go through them? You got 'em.
well, you can start.
Well, we can start with the thing is like people start jumping in here, and then we're gonna start like rehashing some of the stuff. But Dalvin Cook game time decision and Joe Mixon game time decisions, but both are expected to play in some capacity. It does sound like it doesn't sound like either one of their roles are going to be that expected workhorse type. And even if they do play, we still don't know. I think you feel the same way, but I think we feel a little bit more confident about Dalvin Cook today than we do Joe Mixon. Even if Mixon's active, I have him in one of my leagues. I'm probably not playing him if I have any sort of better option. And I know not everybody will, especially in deeper leagues. And so if he's active, you probably just have to throw him in your lineup and just cross your fingers and hope. But if I can avoid that situation, I want to. If Dalvin Cook is active, and it sounds like he will be as well, then that's a little bit of a different situation. Going to play him because this is the same injury he's been dealing with, and we just saw him play on it last week. Madison also shared some of that backfield. I expect that to be the same again today, more than likely. But you're probably playing him. Do you have any? Do you probably feel the same way about those two?
Yeah, I do. I'm a little less keen to the Bengals situation, but the Vikings situation. I did watch that game last week, and Dalvin Cook came out of the game for quite a while. But there was one drive at the end of the game where it was a meaningful drive for the game situation for the football purposes, and Dalvin Cook came out and went hard. So I think it's more that they're trying to manage an injury for Cook, and less that they think he can't play. I think that last drive that he came out for
Yeah.
bodes well for his ability this week, and they've got a decent matchup there with Detroit too. Actually, I'm gonna amend that. It's not a decent matchup; it's a great matchup. It was a decent matchup before Detroit lost two of their linebackers. So I mean, Aquara's out. Uh, I think Trey Flowers is out. I don't know. They've got some injuries there, and it already wasn't great to begin with. So the upside's there
Sure.
too.
Sure. Okay, so next on the running back list, Chase Edmonds. He was another guy that was questionable and wasn't practicing throughout the week. Kingsbury had listed him as a game time decision, I believe it was, but it's been reported that he's expected to play. So Chase Edmonds is in your lineups. CMC is out again this week. No surprise there. Antonio Gibson
He's
also
close
expected to
though.
play. CMC is close. He was actually practicing this week, so maybe CMC comes back next week.
It
That
said
would
there
be a
was
pretty quick.
sorry.
hmm Go ahead.
There was I read one piece that said that he wanted to play this week. So like
Oh yeah,
really interesting. I think it's better for him if he doesn't, right? To try to just get back on track and avoid, anything prolonging or anything new, but I thought that was
yeah. I
weird.
mean, it is. The players want to always play though, so it's that part's not surprising to me. What's surprising to me is that he felt good enough this quickly to go in. But I think it's smart that they're holding him out again another week. Like, there's just no, don't do that. There's no reason. Antonio Gibson is dealing with this shin injury that he's been dealing with the entire season, essentially, and it sounds like this is something he's going to be dealing with for the entire season. So expect to see Antonio Gibson on the injury report just about every week. But he's active, he's playing, and that's probably going to be the case throughout the entire season. It does make, if you do have Gibson, does that make you at all a little more interested in trying to get a hold of McKissick just for the potential and the weirdness that's going on with him and his injury, or are you just not too worried about that?
Well, I mean, I think it's been true. I mean, even like dating back to most of last year, that PPR is going to give McKissick a lot more value. I think for me personally, if we're not in a PPR league, minimum half PPR league. If it's standard scoring, I don't think I'm that
Yeah.
worried about picking up McKissick because he's kind of one dimensional. I mean, he's got some pop to him. I think he could get some additional volume, but it just seems to me like a situation where they wouldn't want McKissick to be like running the ball or getting too much extra work, and that could turn into like a free agent acquisition or a trade like Marlon Mack
Someone
maybe.
else that
Hey.
someone else that steps into that to that 1 and 2 down prominent role, because yeah, McKissick's not the same type of player that Gibson is. Jamal Williams expected to play. Melvin Gordon, DeAndre Swift, both expected to play. Elijah Mitchell active for this game. So here we go again, another week with a bunch of weirdness with the 49ers backfield. Probably can't play either guy, Trey Sermon, Mitchell, right? I mean, we don't even know who it's going to be. That's going to be the main, how these guys are going to share the backfield. We might find out at 12:55 that Trey Sermon's inactive. Okay. And then if something like that happens, then play Mitchell. But both these guys are active, assuming they are. I don't think you can touch that situation. It's a wait and see again. What do you think about that?
Yeah, unfortunately. But I will say that this could be hopefully the last week that we're waiting and seeing on that backfield. I mean, we talked about it a little bit before we started the stream, and it seems like Sermon's in the ideal opportunity right now. That Mitchell's got the speed aspect that's a little unique out of that group,
Mm-hmm.
but that
Mm-hmm.
Sermon did well with some extra volume last week, so there's a chance there that maybe he's taken the early down work and then they sprinkle Mitchell in, here and there trying to, get him to pop with some of that speed. So I mean, if
Yeah.
things feel kind of like that, I'm a lot more interested in Sermon going forward. I'm still a little worried about Jeff Wilson coming along, but like I don't know. I feel better
Mm-hmm.
about Sermon going forward if we see like another 15 to 18 carries and their meaningful touches and maybe a few targets with Mitchell taking a complimentary role.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Like about what you said about maybe this is the last week until Jeff Wilson comes back, where we can kind of get an idea of what this backfield might look like. I do think with Trey Lance being active and him being the starter, at least for this week, I think that RPO is going to be put out there a lot today. And I think that really is going to be able to help whichever running back is going to get the first and second down work opportunities. I think that's going to open up some huge holes. But I can't start either guy without or with any confidence this week. Zeke was on the injury report. He's expected to play. I wouldn't expect him not to. So I think that does cover all the running backs that we had. That group there went through them fairly quickly, but that was a pretty good list of guys there.
Yeah,
Um,
and Zeke's looked better. I mean, he's had a couple of good games, so like I like that. It
okay,
seems like it might
so
just be a little bit of maintenance stuff, but
right. We just got an update. Dalvin Cook is actually inactive.
oh,
Inactive today. So
oh yeah, it just
fire up
popped up for
Madison.
me too. Dalvin Cook
Yep.
inactive. Madison's got a nice matchup here. Um, what's
And
interesting for me without Cook out there is that it's going to come down to coaching game plan, and they haven't had time to instill this, right? So I don't know what they've done in practice or how much they knew about Cook coming in, but your expectations for this game from Minnesota's offense are going to come down completely to coaching approach because I think that Detroit's defense is approachable in both aspects. But we saw like Baltimore come in and their game plan was to just chuck it deep against Detroit because those DBs are so thin. So like definitely Justin Jefferson's a good guy to do that with, and then you've got Thielen and Osborne out there running around underneath too. I think it's going to come down to coaching. Maybe Madison didn't get the reps, but he's good to go. I mean I don't know.
right.
We'll see. But Madison's been around long enough too. I guess if I had to bet, I'd say that they're probably going to run things pretty normal. But if
Yeah,
they
it's the
hit,
thing. I was just gonna say they just had a game plan 2 weeks ago. Dalvin Cook wasn't in, and Madison had that good game. Like I think they already know what they want to do probably.
I'm going to update this ticker here because that was kind of a surprise.
Yeah, it was a surprise. Well, while you're doing that, we can just touch on the quarterbacks too quick because it's just a couple of them. We've already mentioned Trey Lance. He is active. He's gonna be playing. That's gonna be it's gonna be a fun one to see how that looks. And the thing too about that is, I guess the tight ends. There's only a few of them. We can mention them too. But like George Kittle is on IR now, and what does that mean for like Debo Samuel's already been crushing it, Does that mean that Brandon Ayuk might get a few extra looks? It's a different quarterback. It's a quarterback change. Kittle, who does demand some targets, obviously, he's not in there. What is that going to mean for Ayuk? Because, I mean, if Ayuk isn't involved this week again, then I'm going to start to feel like really worried about him. I'm still not going to cut him because it'd be the first week of Trey Lance starting. But, like, if Ayuk can't get some work in without Kittle on the field, then I'm concerned.
Yeah, Lance starting is a good thing for Ayuk. Kittle being out is a good thing for Ayuk. It's probably a bad thing for like Sermon. I like the read option. There's just a lot of change happening within a couple weeks here in San Francisco. I think
Right.
that we both agreed that the read option's going to help the running game, but Kittle's a great blocker too. We've agreed on that. So like that
That's
changes
true.
things there a little bit. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because like if the running back suffers a little bit with as much adversity as they've already had, like is San Francisco like gonna have their arm twisted into passing a little more? Like I just think that there's like three arrows pointing up for Ayuk right now. But like you said, if it doesn't happen now, like I'm starting to think like when will it? I
Right.
think he's good. He's been getting some more targets. It seems like he's out of the doghouse. So we'll
He's
see.
out there a lot. Just another really super disappointing game this past week.
Yeah.
But who knows? Because we don't know what Trey Lance is gonna do, where he's gonna like to throw. This Kittle situation is weird too. Man, San Fran's been a difficult team to figure out so far this year.
They
Outside
really
of Debo
have.
Samuel, it's like, what are we doing? Okay, so we got another update. Joe Mixon's actually active. So we were sitting here thinking like we'd feel a little bit better about Cook than than Mixon, and Cook is inactive and Mixon's active. Ah, God, that's a tough situation. I don't feel like I can play Joe Mixon, like I said, unless I have to. I'm just really concerned that it could be situational only, and he may not play at all if they don't need him to. But who knows, bro? He could go out there and get 70% of the work.
Yeah.
I can't. I can't afford it. I don't think. I can't
Well,
afford to
plus
do it.
if you think about too, Jair Alexander's out for Green Bay's defense, and T Higgins just came back too. So like maybe Mixon's active, but their plan is like we're gonna we're gonna use you when we absolutely need to, but maybe it's a little bit of a decoy thing. Like, hey, you go hang out there, and we're gonna exploit this pass to you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, exactly. It could be. Okay. Well, let's. So the quarterbacks. Yeah. So Trey Lance is in. Teddy
Little
Bridgewater is
shootout
also.
is little shootout
What's
potential
that?
in Cincinnati between the Packers and the
Oh,
Bengals.
I definitely think that's possible. Hey, man, I took that Joe Burrow over 1.5 touchdowns at like minus 160, 165, something like that. I mean, I feel like that's a pretty safe bet. But those are always the ones that you feel like are like those are the oh yeah, that's definitely happening, and those are the ones that don't hit.
Right,
so
right.
Samaje P ran 2 touchdowns incoming. um, Teddy Bridgewater's active. They're expected to play. He's going to be in. So it's kind of right back to where we were before, where you're playing. Sutton is active. We'll get to the receivers in a sec, but Sutton's active. You're gonna be playing all those guys. You can play Tim Patrick. He's flex worthy. So let's get to those receivers. We've got Cortland Sutton. He was a game time decision, but we just got the update that he is actually active for the game. So you're putting him in your lineup. You're playing him, I believe. I don't think you can sit him. I don't know. I mean, he has been a little bit frustrating, but at the same time, Drew Lock was in last week. I mean, you have Sutton. What's your temperature on him?
I have Sutton and OBJ, and both of them I'm kind of viewing as the same right now. I expected Sutton to be more consistent, which has been frustrating so far, but I'm keeping him in my lineup for the upside at this point. Um,
Totally agree.
it seems to be a little matchup dependent, more so than I wanted it to be, but I keep kind of like changing my approach, like to basically there's probably a dozen or so players that are truly matchup proof these days anyway, and that like I'm taking more of like the depth and play my matchups approach for most of my guys at this point. So I think Sutton has a lot of value. I just think that he's not one of those guys you're gonna just roll out every week like I was kind of hoping for. And we'll just take it when we can get it.
Yeah, but if he goes out there and balls this first week back with Teddy B, then he's probably right back into that. You're definitely starting him territory.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's been what 4 weeks and he's had one big one, and then I think he had one that
Right.
was all right. So yeah, I mean, if he
Yeah.
hits again this week, I'm gonna feel a lot better about it.
Right. We
He's
mentioned
a
him,
great
but T
player.
Higgins is. Oh yeah, he is. Love Sutton. Just need that. Just need that production. I think. I think without Jerry Judy there right now, I just don't see how he's not the primary target for Teddy Bridgewater. But T Higgins is active. You're starting him against Green Bay with no Alexander. Definitely starting T Higgins. He's been practicing this week too. I don't think there's really like any issues or worry right now for him.
Interesting
Um,
T
um
Higgins comment
okay.
because I didn't know what to do and I almost did it, and I think it's one of those where I talk myself out of it, but maybe in 6 weeks I regret it. I had a trade offer. It was a 2-for-1, which I already am turned off by. But it was an offer to get Calvin Ridley from me. So I have Calvin Ridley, and the offer was T Higgins, and it was like another piece that was like you could see yourself starting him on a semi-regular basis, but not a plug and play, right? Like I wasn't just getting the juice back. But the
Hmm.
main pieces were T Higgins and Ridley, and then the extra piece was kind of like, I know that you probably value Ridley higher, but this is somebody that could be valuable to you, right, to kind of offset the difference. Now, here's the
Hmm.
thing for me was like I was really considering it because Ridley's had
Hmm.
some decent volume and underperformed. Plus, it was right after I found out that Ridley was missing this game. He didn't even fly to London for personal reasons, which is better than an injury. Don't get me wrong, but it's like disappointment after disappointment with Ridley. And Higgins has been really good, and he was like the youngest or one of the youngest. Like he was one of the youngest receivers drafted last year and had a very nice rookie year. And then I started thinking in a keeper league, like Joe Burrow is there, and he's going to
Right.
be there for a while. And these guys have been, have the chemistry, and like there's a long term. Anyway, I guess I'm saying that I started evaluating T Higgins long term, and I didn't realize it till that offer came through. Like getting close to that territory of Calvin Ridley, and obviously the quarterback situation in Atlanta is something that affected that too. Like what happens post Matt Ryan? Like how long are they going to let that be a thing? So like there's some other things too. It's not like one to one player for player
Hmm.
only, but like I don't know. What's your first thought when you hear that? Because it's like I started thinking to myself, like, man, am I really that high on T Higgins? Like, am I crazy? Is it more about like some of the security long term? Am I just pissed at Calvin Ridley? Like, I'm trying to break this down now. That trade opportunity is already gone, so it's not like your feedback's going to be like, okay, let me go hit this up real quick.
Yeah. Uh, my first thought was I just think that Ridley's had such a tough, slow start, and because you are the one, like you have Calvin Ridley, so you've had to sit through that. Remember how we kind of talked about this last week, where like when you have that guy that's underperforming, it feels much worse than someone else on another team looking to buy low on a player like a Calvin Ridley who hasn't had to go through the actual experience week to week. That's been a drag. So it doesn't feel the same. So when you have a player like that, you're like, let me buy low on him. And then even if he still has another bad week or two, you can deal with it, even though it's been 5 or 6 weeks technically. You can deal with it because it's new to your roster and it doesn't feel as bad. So I can understand, like on your side, the frustration of it. I do think Ridley is like we were talking about Robert Woods. I think being a buy low, I think Calvin Ridley falls into that same category. I just feel like it's got to get better, but it does make it more interesting in a keeper league because, like you said, like I'd much rather be tied to Joe Burrow right now than Matt Ryan, and I also do really like T Higgins, even with the other wide receivers there, and we like all of them. We like Boyd. We Chase is showing that like all those preseason reports, we're just throwing those out the window at this point because none of that has shown up on film. He's been able to catch the ball just fine. They must have. I don't know if they're spray painting the ball, those laces. That way we haven't paid enough attention to that to see. But I do still like T Higgins a lot. But Higgins. I don't know that Higgins is that. Maybe he is. We'll have to see how the season looks. But I was gonna say I don't know that he is like a top 10 wide receiver for fantasy. I think he might be on the outside of that, but still a really good wide receiver too. I think Calvin Ridley can be on the back end or so of that wide receiver one range when him and Matt Ryan are on the same page. There's been some misses for Matt Ryan too. Like Ridley's been open on some that even on some deep ones that Matt Ryan has just missed. And that's concerning too. But I think like in your case with whatever that second piece was for Higgins, that would have probably been a determining factor for me. And if it was just one of those pieces where it's like you can play him, but you're probably not going to every week or some weeks, then I'm probably not doing it. But if it would have been another really attractive second piece, I would have considered pulling the trigger.
Well, it makes me feel a little bit better because I was like pumping the brakes a little bit, but I've also been pretty big on T. Higgins. Like, I remember watching T. Higgins when he was young in their Clemson spring game, and he caught my attention then. Like, the kid's good, but
Yeah.
he's not there yet. When you have the value, it's like sometimes you're stuck because like, I know that Calvin Ridley has more value, and it's like, well, how much can I get for him? Or, and then, but sometimes that makes you wait too late, too. So, it's interesting.
Right. It does. It's really just it's really Chase catching touchdowns and getting open regularly. Like that does. I still really like T. Higgins and would want him, and I would play him if I had him on any of my rosters. But that does give me a little bit less confidence in his weekly upside than I had before that. If Chase had come out here and sucked and was not producing and was struggling with all the things we were in preseason, if those things were showing to be true in the regular season, then I would feel better about Higgins.
Yeah, I just looked it up. The other piece was Darnell Mooney, which had me interested because I clearly felt the need to add a receiver. That's where I got that rug steal after. But
okay, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, man, I got Mooney. I could run out there too. We got Fields out there. Could be slinging the ball.
Mooney's interesting. I don't expect 125 yards every week, but Justin Fields can throw a deep ball, and Mooney had so many open looks deep downfield last year that Trubisky just couldn't hit. Foles, they all terrible. Okay, so Amari Cooper, he himself said he's good to go. He is listed as a game time decision. Maybe we'll get an update on him soon. But as of right now, we do expect him to play. Hopefully those Dallas Cowboy wide receivers. I mean, Cooper did have a nice touchdown this past week, but man, CeeDee Lamb has been uninvolved. Like 5 targets and 3 targets. He's just not at all done what everybody was hoping for.
Yeah.
Once Gallup was out.
Well, and also weird too is like Lamb started getting into some of those like key targets too that Cooper has had since he got to Dallas, like those third down looks or like the second and longs, and like more so lately. And it's not like the volume's not there. I'm not saying go add this guy in fantasy. It's more how it affects Lamb and Cooper. But Cedric Wilson has been getting some of these key targets too, and it's been kind of weird because it's like not many, but he's getting like 3 or 4 of these where it's like, does Dak trust Cedric Wilson now, like, or is he just taking what's out there? And we were just hyping up Dalton Schultz on our last stream too, so kind of
he's become a thing.
Yeah, there's been some transition over there. It's kind of weird.
I'm really nervous. I have Dalton Schultz. I picked him up because I had Logan Thomas, and so I picked up Dalton Schultz to just throw him out there and see, but I just feel like this is one of those, I don't know why, I hope it's not true. I feel like this is one of those weeks. Schultz has had 2 good games in a row where he disappears and does nothing, and CeeDee Lamb just goes off and has himself a game. Because it's just, he's due, right? CeeDee Lamb is due.
Oh, yeah.
So Amari Cooper should be playing. He's expected to play, starting him if he's active. Chase Claypool, he should be in. Julio Jones out. A.J. Brown in. Maybe we see a big game from A.J. Brown. Maybe this is a nice little bounce back for him.
Yeah. It's a great opportunity.
It is. Devonte Parker, I don't think we mentioned him yet, but he was just listed as out. Or yes, downgraded to out. Didn't see that one coming. If you picked up Mike Gesicki this week as your tight end, might feel a little bit better about playing him. And if you've got Jalen Waddle and you were looking for somebody playing your flex, you could probably do worse. We got something in the chat here. We've got Madison or J-Rob in PPR. Madison, Zeke, Aaron Jones, Barkley, Javonte Williams, and Josh Jacobs start 3. Damn.
Yeah, it's kind of stacked.
Yeah, it is. Well, man, I don't know how you don't play Aaron Jones. And boy, you've got such good options. Madison just completely crushed it when he had that game a couple weeks ago without Dalvin Cook in. I mean, he is essentially what, like, as far as his role goes, he just slots right into what Dalvin Cook does. He's not as good as Dalvin, but he's still a pretty damn good back. I'm probably going to play Madison, Aaron Jones, and Zeke, but Barkley's been good too. I think Javonte Williams and Josh Jacobs are the two that I'm going to let sit.
Yeah,
And then
Jacobs had
between those
the
other four.
injury and he played through it last week. So like I think he's still going to be a little limited from that. He's going to be out there and I don't think his like opportunity changes too much as far as like volume goes, but I think that or workload, but like he's going to be
Yeah.
capped a little bit cuz he's still working through some stuff. I like I mean, yeah, I think Zeke and Aaron Jones are the two guys you go with too. And then you're
Yeah.
comparing Barkley to Madison, and Madison's probably got the better upside today. I think
Feels so
Barkley,
wrong,
I know.
doesn't it? Feels so wrong to start Madison over those guys. I think you have to start Zeke, Aaron Jones, and Barkley.
Yeah.
Madison could have himself a good game, no doubt, but like Barkley's looked so much better since he's come back from his injury and got more and more involved every week. Like every week he's just looked a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. I feel pretty good about him at this point. And Dallas has been pretty good, underrated on defense, but I'm going to start Barkley, Aaron Jones, and Zeke. And then as far as J-Rob and Madison, let's see here. God, the Titans are absolutely trash on defense. They are not good. That's who Robinson gets this week.
Which will keep them.
That
keep
particular one, I'm going to start Madison.
It'll keep Jacksonville in a position to run the ball a little more. Like game flow won't get away from them as much as it might in other games, I don't think. But
yeah, I'm still going to start Madison in that one though. But you've got so many good options there. You can't go wrong either way.
That's true. And I mean, like the Barkley Madison thing, like it's going to be easier to accept that like Madison outscores Barkley if you're riding Barkley outright. But imagine you put Madison in your lineup and Barkley goes ham. It's like
yeah, I know
okay.
it's partly like what can you live with?
Yeah.
I
But I agree though. Barkley's been. I mean, it's been positive for Barkley each week, so he hasn't taken any clear steps back. Everything's been getting better and better for him. So I mean, it's fair to assume that it continues, to get a little better, even if it's like one or two extra big plays for him.
Right.
It's looking good.
So, so Devonte Parker is out. Get back to these receivers. Curtis Samuel's expected to play. He did last week. I'm not too excited about him. I would be looking for other people to play outside of Curtis Samuel, but he is active, and there's no Logan Thomas now, so maybe maybe he gets fed a little bit more. Something we'll have to just see. Josh Gordon's active, not playing. Don't play him. Not playing Josh Gordon, but we'll just because who knows how much work he's going to get. Who knows what he looks like. Can't trust that situation right now. That's all the wide receivers, so we can go to the tight ends. Kittle is on IR. That's a minimum 3-week situation. Gronk is out again this week, and Hockenson is expected to play. And I would be playing him if he's active, obviously.
Yeah, you've got to start Hawkinson. He's been a little bit frustrating. Even he came out and said that he's been the primary focus for the defense, which I think is fair, and I think that's the next step in his development. So, it speaks a lot to where he's at. And there's a little bit to be said about lack of alternative options, too. Like, Detroit's receiving core isn't sexy. But they're also trying to get Hockenson more involved in a lot of different ways, too, which is good for his fantasy production, but it seems like he's a little frustrated with it. Temper your expectations with him this week because Minnesota's got oh man, why can't I think of his name now? Kendricks, I want to say it is. That's actually a pretty good pass coverage linebacker out there. I do still like to think that Hockenson can beat most linebacker coverages out there, but I'm just saying it might be a little bit capped. You're still gonna have to. I would still be starting him if you have him because the volume and opportunities there, but I don't know that this is a great week for Hockenson. I think we're just hoping for some opportunity here and maybe he gets a touchdown. But good player. He's just kind of in a bad spot for fantasy as far as his development goes. It's like he's demanding more attention and he's getting it.
Right. So there is one wide receiver group I didn't mention just because it gives us something to talk about after we went through these injuries, but Darius Slayton and Shepard are both out for the Giants. So this rookie Kadarius Toney is going to get another start again this week, and probably be one of the two primary looks for Daniel Jones. I mean, you do have Barkley, and he's going to get some targets. You do have Evan Ingram. He's been disappointing since he's been back. So it's Kenny Gallaudet and it's Kadarius Toney on the outside. I don't know if you got the chance to watch any of Kadarius Toney this past week. If you didn't, I want to send you a video of him. But this dude, I'm jumping the gun, so this is going to be like an overreaction thing. But you know who he reminded me a lot of when I was watching him play?
Who's that?
Deontay Johnson. He is a small player, smaller wide receiver, and is incredibly quick with his just right from the jump. He's very quick and very shifty, and there was a couple plays right off the line where he had guys right across from him and just shook them right out of their cleats. Like there was one move he put on where it was just a quick. He acted like he was going to cut out, and he cut right back in and just froze the defender, and he hit a slant, and Daniel Jones right away, like it wasn't even a question. As soon as Daniel Jones got the ball, he knew right where he was going. Him in the open field, like I don't know, he was making guys miss like crazy. Okay, so that's the good. The bad, drops. Had like 2 drops. Both of them he should have caught. Who's that remind you of?
Deontay Johnson. There we go.
Yeah, it does. He looked a lot like Deontay Johnson to me out there, and he's probably not as good as Deontay Johnson because Johnson's awesome. But it was just a little bit reminiscent, the way he played and the way he looked to me. So I don't know. And just for the stream, like I threw him out. I picked him up and put him on the end of my bench. It's not somebody I'm going to play unless I was like super desperate or something like that. But had a good game this past week. We've already had our feelings on Kenny Gallaudet this year. Dubs felt pretty strongly about Kenny Gallaudet. I don't think I need to sell you on maybe someone else emerging over there outside of Kenny Gallaudet for targets and production. So, he could go out and suck this week. Tony could, or just not have any yards, any production. Maybe he gets a couple drops and doesn't get any more looks. So I'm not pitching this as like, this guy's now a starter. But he's sneaky. And he was a high draft pick for the Giants this year. A lot of people didn't understand why they took another receiver. I mean, maybe they took him because they think this dude's really, really good. So just something that I'm paying attention to this week. And I don't know. I'm definitely going to be watching him because I'm curious to see how he looks again this week.
Well, there should be some opportunity, like season-long opportunities for us to get a feel for him too, because like Slayton and Shepard, this isn't their first time missing games. So when everyone's healthy, it seems like there's a lot of players there. The likelihood of those guys all being healthy, I think, is relatively low. But also, like, I don't think Sterling Shepard's going to go away when he's healthy. I think you're looking more to see if, like, Slayton takes a step back. If Tony is looking good, I think that would be a Slayton replacement.
Yeah, that's the weirdness in all this, too, is if he does have another productive week and then Shepard and Sterling, either one of them or both become active, then this feels like we're dealing with a 49ers backfield, but it's wide receivers for the Giants. And we just don't know what to do.
Well, I think Slayton's still involved at this point because they like some of his big play ability. And if Tony is filling that, if he's providing that at a better rate, or he's looking better doing it, I could see him taking that role over. I mean, if he's looking that good out there, because Slayton, it seems more like they want him to be that guy than more so than he has really been that guy. So it'd be interesting to watch too. I mean, it's an opportunity for him this week. I get what you're saying, but I'm also kind of curious like how this plays out long term. Where like if he supplants Darius Slayton out there, that could be interesting.
Good. Rady comes in with a question: Saquon, Chuba, or Gibson in half PPR? I'm probably going to play Saquon. I do like Antonio Gibson as well. He's got a bit of a tougher matchup against the Saints. Barkley's been involved in the passing game, so I feel like even if he's struggling on the ground, there's still going to be a nice floor for him, and obviously he's got all the upside in the world. He's looked a lot better. Hubbard I can't trust just because he wasn't even that involved in the passing game as much as we were expecting this past week in his first game without CMC. So it's a Saquon Barkley for me.
Same. Yeah, I think I was big on Chuba, and it was because I was expecting him to fill that CMC role pretty clearly, and Freeman was the main threat when CMC came out. Like in that half that they played without CMC, it was like Hubbard and Freeman, and then they have time to prep and make some adjustments, and then they bring another guy in to take all of the receiving work. So that changed how I felt on that pretty quick, and it ended up not being what we wanted it to be, and also I think what it should have been. But yeah, you got to go Saquon, and he's been looking
Yep.
better.
He has. He honestly is giving me a lot more confidence. 2 weeks ago, I felt like, okay, feeling a little bit better. And then last week, I'm like, man, I feel so much better if I have Saquon now, just based off how he's looked. No problem, Randy. Thanks for the question. Well, we got some time to chill and BS. Maybe we'll get some more questions in chat here within the hour before the game start.
Yeah. Well, we touched on a little bit of it already with the quarterbacks, but we got Trey Lance starting, and we think that's going to help the running game with the RPO stuff, and we think it's going to help Ayuk. So like that's interesting. That's exciting.
Definitely.
Bridgewater's back, which should be better for Sutton, but better for the team as a whole. I think the one thing you would like to if you're a Noah Fant owner, I think you're rooting for Drew Locke, right? But like other than that, I think Bridgewater's better for that offense overall.
I think so. I just think he's going to be better at sustaining drives, making the right decisions. But honestly, that narrative with Teddy B about not taking shots downfield and being very conservative, I don't feel like in these few weeks with Denver that he's played, I don't feel like I've really seen a conservative quarterback. I think he's taken plenty of shots deeper downfield, like enough that I don't think it's worth thinking in your mind that he's not doing that still, because I think he's doing it enough. It's why it has me what's the word I'm looking for? not positive, but essentially that feeling good about having Sutton. Like I feel better about him than I would have coming into the year. We were a little bit worried about it with Teddy Bridgewater capping his upside. I don't necessarily think that we got to worry about that right now. I think he's there. I do agree. Like Fant might be, maybe he's the one that takes a little bit of a step back without having Drew Locke, but as a whole for the team and even for the receivers, I think you want Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, I agree. There's the big news that happened on the Thursday night game, right, is that Russ came out. So the biggest part of that for me, because I don't have Lockett or DK Metcalf, is that it cost me about $78 on DraftKings. I had
on your parlay.
Yeah, I had like a 6 or 7 leg same game parlay, and that was the only leg that didn't hit. I needed like 220 passing yards from Russ. Didn't get it, but you take that on the chin, you move on. You can't do anything about it. But
that's a tough one.
I mean, your DK and Lockett. Lockett was drafted higher than probably he has been so far in his career. I mean, he got more respect, I think, in the drafts this year than most years.
DK?
No, Lockett. Well, DK got some. I think he got a little bit of respect last year, but Lockett's been pretty solid, and he didn't get too much love. It seemed like he was going a little higher than I expected this year, though. And so, like, you have some investments in both of those guys, and now you're looking at no Russ until week 10. They're hoping for right now.
Yeah, week 10, and obviously we don't know. That's just what they're hoping for. You can't do anything about it,
Well, both of those guys get a respectable amount of production from the deep ball too, and we were kind of talking.
I know.
Like I was taking it for granted when I said it, but like talking about Russ's deep balls and how like he's just got this like beautiful high arcing deep ball that like helps Lockett's size, where it just kind of drops in the basket. So like I think even if there's guys that are out there throwing the ball, if Geno Smith comes out and he's like, I'm going to try to be Russell Wilson and I'm throwing the ball deep and we're going to try to keep this offense, which I don't see happening. Like I don't see anybody throwing balls like Russell Wilson does deep either. So I think both of those guys take a hit, and it's a big bummer because that's a while. We're looking at 5 weeks without them.
Yeah, and you're right. There's not many guys, if anyone, that has a deep ball quite like Russell Wilson's deep ball. Both those guys definitely take a hit, but you still have to, like, obviously Metcalf, you're always playing still, and until further notice, unless Gino goes out there and sucks for a couple weeks in a row, and the receivers are getting no production, they're not moving the ball. Then you have to reevaluate it at that time. But like this coming up week, for instance, you're still going to play Metcalf, and you're just going to hope. And Locke, you can still play and hope. I mean, Gino looked pretty good when he came in that game, but we can't expect like that. What was that? A half a football or something? We don't really actually know what that's going to look like going forward. All that you can hope if you have one of those guys is that Gino's learned some things from Russell Wilson, and that he's going to be better. And you just, what can you do? It sucks. And you can't trade those guys either, because now they have lesser value. Like, even if you want to get out from underneath it, outside of a keeper league or dynasty, which don't trade DK Metcalf in a dynasty because of this.
No.
But in like a keeper league, if you wanted to get out from under it, that's the only type of league that you maybe can get some real value for him still if you want it out. But otherwise, you're just stuck. You got to ride him.
Well, and if you would be considering that would be like, we've done it, you've done it, I've done it, but like you're looking at your team and you feel like you've got a chance to win it all this year, and you're like, man, I got a guy on my team that I could still get some value for. It's a keeper league, and like I think I could win it if I get something, if I can not
get one more piece or something.
Yeah, not eat this 5-week lull. Because here's the thing, like Seattle's defense has been mediocre so far too, and Chris Carson's got this neck injury that they're saying could keep him out again next week. Like Seattle they just turned into a shithole. Like in one play, and I'm not like, there's still a lot of good players over there, but that situation just got so bad. Like Carson's not there. Alex Collins can run the ball a little bit. They're talking about maybe trying to get Rashad Penny back for next week. And I think that's more desperation. Like it just got ugly for the next month.
Really did. Greg comes in with a question. Start one in full PPR. Pittman, Waddle, Devonta Smith. Is Waddle a must start this week with Parker out? So I actually have a similar situation to you. I have Pittman and Waddle, and I have flipped back and forth between those two and my flex. And honestly, that's kind of a difficult one for me to figure out. I will say I don't think Waddle is a must start. I don't think so. Sometimes we see these main receivers and options out for a team, and then we just automatically are like, okay, well, then that means that this guy now, who is another starter, he's obviously going to get all the work and be heavily involved. And that doesn't, probably just as often as it does happen, just as often it doesn't happen where that's not actually true. It doesn't become the case. But it is a nice uptick for him. I'm probably going to play Waddle over Pittman because I want a floor. But and I'm just, for some reason, I'm a little bit worried about that Baltimore matchup. The thing is about Baltimore, like, they put so much pressure on the quarterback, and Wentz has really looked pretty bad under a lot of pressure, so it's just got me concerned. But Pittman has been that short underneath kind of safety valve, so maybe he's got a floor too. I don't know. That one's a toss-up. I will say over between the three, I'm starting Devonta Smith. I just don't know how you don't play him after him coming off of the week he has, and he's looked so good. Probably going to play Devonta Smith over those other two.
I'm leaning the same way, but here there's a couple things to break down here. We've been big on Pittman. Marlon Humphreys has been moving around the field a lot this year. I've seen a bit of their defense, but I think this is one of the few times this year where it's been clear where they would want Marlon Humphrey to be lining up. So like I think Pittman's going to see a lot of Marlon Humphrey too. So that's going to be a bad thing for him this week only. I don't know how ready he is, but Carolina has added a couple DBs over the last 2 weeks via trade. So they added Stephon Gilmore, right?
Yeah, he's not active. We don't have to worry about him.
He's not active. And then they added Henderson from Jacksonville too. And I think he is somebody that they more want to keep in the number 2 role in hindsight with Gilmore out there. And I think there's a little bit of a mentorship aspect to that too, where they I guess I'm just saying I think Henderson has some talent, but maybe he's not quite there yet. So that, I don't know, it's kind of interesting to me. I think it means that Carolina doesn't feel great about their DBs anyway, and having Devonta Smith with the momentum he has is a good pick.
Right. I will agree. And James says Waddle is a must start. I mean, maybe I will say in full PPR, it certainly feels a lot better to start Waddle because it's an obvious floor. I mean, what was it a couple weeks ago? Waddle had 12 catches or something like that. Like that's crazy. But I am probably going to play Devonta Smith. Those are good 3 choices, and they are close. They all are close. Who should I pick between these two? AB, Ruggs, Gallaudet, and Higgins. Higgins, yes. I'm going to start Higgins. Between AB, Ruggs, and Gallaudet. Boy. AB's had a couple disappointing weeks, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know. I know you just traded for Ruggs and you're playing him this week because you got like some injuries and shit you're dealing with. But for me, it's between Gallaudet and AB with those other two. But Higgins is the one I'm definitely starting. Do you have a preference between the other 3? It's a tough one, huh?
Preference? Well, I mean, my preference would probably be AB. I think Galladay's got the opportunity with like Slayton and Shepard being out. My concern, like Trayvon Diggs has been playing well, but I think Galladay's would offset that. I think it's more of a
Yeah.
trust factor. So like if Diggs is on Galladay for most of the day, I just don't know that Daniel Jones is going to force the ball in there. I think Galladay would win those against Diggs, even though Diggs has been playing really well. But I just don't see if there's tight coverage. I don't think Daniel Jones is that guy. So
Right.
yeah, I think AB is a safer pick. Obviously there's some speed and a little bit of consistency for Ruggs, which I've liked, but I don't think we're there yet to start him over those other guys.
Yeah. AB and Higgins, that's probably where we both leaned in. I think Higgins is our favorite between that group. I will say there's potential, maybe this Gallaudet, Daniel Jones thing from last week, maybe that carries over. Maybe these guys get on the same page. Even if you don't start Gallaudet, hope for him to have a good game. So then moving forward, you can actually feel much more confident. Probably if he has another good game this week, you can feel better about starting him moving forward.
Breck, we were both just talking before the stream here. Clyde's been pretty good the last couple weeks, so like I think you're keeping him in your lineup. I would still like to see him have a little bit more volume for how high we drafted him, but he's been pretty solid. I still can't get that, like, what was it, 2-carry game out of my mind for Miles Sanders. I know they made it a point to get him a little more involved the following week, but I'd be looking at Madison over Miles just because that rattled me pretty bad.
Same. If you're saying, Breck, that you're starting, you can start 2 of those guys. It's CH and Madison for me, and I'm benching Miles Sanders.
Yeah.
I'm putting Miles Sanders on my bench until he shows me that he's actually going to be able to produce. Gesicki will get targets. Yeah, I agree, James. Without Parker, I mean, Gesicki's been much more involved. Brissett seems to want to throw to him quite a bit, and I like him. I like him for a lot of targets again this week too. Gesicki's a weird one because he just like will randomly fade and not do anything in a game. He did that all last year, but it seems like Brissett is like super like he's locked on Gesicki. So I think if you picked him up as a fill-in tight end this week, you're happy about that Parker news. Just remember that they do have other receivers that they will have on the field. It's not going to only be Waddle and Gesicki. And I know that these guys are not great players that are on the outside for the Dolphins today, and they're not even Devonte Parker. They're not even as good as him. But like they can. There might be some plays where they get open. One of those guys might surprise you this week. Just know this is not like a foolproof plan to just throw Waddle out there and it's guaranteed, or throw Gesicki out there and it's guaranteed. We like their chances this week, though.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, like Preston Wilson's had a couple flashes. I mean, obviously they're not like totally committed to him with bringing Fuller in, and I mean,
right.
But he's not a bum.
No, it does seem like Brissett he wants the ball out quick. That's why Gesicki's got a lot of those targets. That's why that 1 week Waddle had, I don't know, it was double-digit targets. I have, like I said, I mentioned it earlier. I have Waddle and Pittman, and that's a tough one for me to decide between them. I think I am gonna go with Waddle this week, but I do see a world where I end up regretting that. Oh man,
the beauty of fantasy football, right?
I tell you what. We appreciate you guys being in chat, though. If you guys haven't, like, stream, and subscribe, please do so. We do this on Sunday before every game and before all the games start. Outside of these London ones, we're not waking up that early to do this.
Yeah.
And we do these on Tuesdays as well. When it's waiver wire pickups and all that, we jump on stream and talk with people, see what's going on that week. I don't know. We've been getting some pretty good feedback and good activity over the past few weeks doing this. We've been thinking about potentially doing this another day of the week, but we'll probably hold off on that until I don't know, maybe just a later date.
Yeah, it's been great though. We've been getting a lot of chat involvement, a lot of good questions. In case, for the people that are new, like we've helped people work through some trades too, just trying to evaluate trades and determining like how much is too much to give up for a guy, or I don't know, that's been pretty fun too. So like we're just here for all of it. We're here. Some people share their opinions, like James put on there, Waddle's a must start, like totally cool. Like we love that. We're just here for fantasy, man. We love it.
Here's what I'm gonna do, James, because you said that. I'm starting Waddle in my flex. All right. Now listen, if Waddle sucks, okay, if Waddle goes out there doesn't do anything, I'm coming for you, James. Show back up and come back and chat on Tuesday. I'm coming for you.
Now we like him though. We like him as a player. My concern with Gesicki, like the hyper focus would offset that quite a bit, but like Devin White and Levante David are pretty good pass coverage guys too. So like they're gonna have to scheme it up a little bit. Maybe try to put those guys in a tough decision, where maybe there's some option plays out there or something like that. But I mean, if you've got a quarterback that just is staring one guy down on a regular basis, like that offsets a lot of that, because he's just gonna, like, from what I see, he's gonna throw at that player's best opportunity to catch the ball too. So there's going to be some times where Jacoby Brissett's going to try to beat that coverage with a couple throws, I think, too.
The game's just interesting because the obvious narrative is, Tampa Bay's going to score. They're going to light up the scoreboard, and Miami's going to have to keep up, so they're going to have to throw. And who do they got? They got nobody. It's going to have to be Waddle. It's going to have to be Gesicki. And maybe that happens, and if it does, then you're going to be happy you're starting guys like Waddle. But there's also a world where like Tampa Bay goes out there and struggles against Miami. Miami comes in, they're hyped, they're ready to go against the Tampa Bay team, and Miami's got a good defense. So like Tampa Bay could struggle. It might not be as high scoring as you think, and then the pass catchers for Miami might be a little bit more disappointing. But it seems like if there's one thing we know, it seems like they've got no run game right now, Miami, and then you're playing Tampa Bay, who is maybe the most difficult team to run against.
Oh, Myles Gaskins can go straight to hell.
Right.
That dude, he's given up too much volume to be valuable. If you've got Gaskins, I mean, that's somebody that I'm pretty far out on now. I had him in one league, so I think when you're drafting guys, it's important to know where the value's coming from. And in Gaskins, for me, it was the volume, and with him not getting that, there's nothing left for me there. There's no upside. There's nothing you're looking at and being like, thinking to yourself like, this is going to get better.
Seems tough right now. Seems real tough. The correct answer is never trade. Man, I don't know. Trading's just too much fun, man.
Oh yeah, but I will say
like
trading's changed a lot in the last few years. We've talked about that. Like, there's a lot better research, I think. I'm not gonna say, but I also think there's more, and I think that the quality of the information that we've got has been a lot more helpful for people that have had a harder time evaluating trades. But like, it used to be part of fantasy to try to fleece somebody, right? Like you would just try to get a trade out there where you're like, I'm going to see what I can get for this guy. But the thing is like, a lot more people have been playing fantasy football for quite a while. Like I feel like there's a lot fewer new players, and don't get me wrong, you're not trying to go out there and ruin somebody's season on purpose, right? But like, you also are trying to make your team as good as possible. And it's been kind of interesting because it's like, maybe guys are just deferring to not making moves if they don't know or feel good about it, but like, it's just a little bit of a different world, those high upside. But the excitement comes from like, maybe you're taking a known risk that could pay off huge. And like that, I don't know, that little feeling you get where it's like, man, this could be the dude for me. Like this could put me at the front of the pack. Like it's so much fun.
Well, it's always a situation too where it depends on how people's fantasy seasons are going so far. Like we've played 4 games. This is our 5th week. So there's some people out there that Maybe they haven't won yet. Maybe they're 1-3, or maybe even they're 2-2 and they're kind of on the fence. And when you're like that, you feel the need. Like you look at your roster and you feel the need to change something. Like I got to figure something out here. I got to pick somebody up. I need to look to make trades. Let me go look at everybody else's roster. Who's got who? And you start to panic a little bit. It is in those situations you do have to recognize too, just did you play the wrong people that week? And if you had played someone on your bench, would you have won a game you lost? Is your team still being productive and you've just had tough matchups and your team's actually fine? Like if you have that, don't panic. Like just stay in your pocket and don't feel like you have to make a move. But those teams that are struggling and they're not putting up points, like that is what trading is for. Like that's when you need to try to make something happen and be as active as hell on waivers. But those are the only times I'm looking to trade right now. If you're sitting good, you're just riding that and you don't feel pressured. And like with me, I'm 2-2 in one league, but I'm putting up a lot of points. I've had a couple unfortunate matchups in trading, and I haven't made one yet this year. I've sent a couple offers out, but they were ones where I was like, man, if this happened, hell yeah. But if not, I'm cool. Digit trades before in the same league. I think I've done that before. And sometimes those work out, but sometimes they don't. You think those are going to be like problem solvers, and your team still stays the same. Oh, looks like Dub left me. I'm all alone. You guys got any more questions in the chat? I see there's a decent amount of us in here. Who you guys starting this week that you're feeling a little nervous about? How about that? I know you guys got some people in your flex or your RB2 or something like that you're feeling a little sketchy about. Free agents waivers are fine. Trades are the road to regret. Sometimes, man. Sometimes that is true. I've definitely made some trades I've regretted.
Same. You take the good with the bad on the trades, but like the thing is you look at some of these guys and it gives you an opportunity to acquire players at a value that you wouldn't have otherwise. Like Allen Robinson is a great player, and that could get better. A lot of it's going to depend on like how Justin Fields settles in, what that offense looks like. There's some growing pains right now, but like that's a very good player that was like wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 2, the last couple years in Chicago, and you could go get him for relatively cheap.
He would be pretty cheap right now, I would think, in a trade. That's one that's tough too, though. Like he was a Robert Woods situation. We were saying last week on stream that we thought Robert Woods was a good buy low. That's not going to be the case now because he just had that big game. But I want to say that about Allen Robinson because we know how good of a player he is, and that's what we like to bet on is really good players. But yeah, that situation it's a very risky situation. That's one where I still would want to try to trade for Allen Robinson, I think, but I don't want to give up much. That's one where I just test the waters, see what the temperature is on the person that has Allen Robinson, like just how low are they on this player? Because everybody's got the right price where I would be interested. But it might not get any better. It might not get any better for him. And if it doesn't, you don't want to give up a starter for that.
For sure. It's definitely the risk. There's like a list of guys that cross my mind where it's like probably going to get that. You could get this guy cheaper. The real question is like, is it going to pay off?
Amari Cooper's your big worry. Yeah, man. Yeah, that's a tough one. You got to start Amari, obviously, if he's active, and I'm sure you are. But yeah, you worry about him with how banged up and hurt he seems to have been for most of the season. He's got a pretty good track record of that, huh? Amari does tend to play through injuries quite often. He did that even with the Raiders.
And pretty well. It's not like he's out there like decoy. Like
yeah,
usually
he cuts it out.
Yeah.
Just been a weird I don't know. This kind of falls under the Dallas Cowboys offense is a perfect example of us thinking we know a situation when we really don't. Like, we thought that Dallas was going to be passing all the time, super high scoring, fantasy points for everybody, everywhere. And that hasn't been the case. Look at, I mean, that first week, we all thought, that first week, too, against Tampa Bay with Dallas, when that was the case, everybody's like, well, yeah, of course, this is what we knew was going to be the thing for the whole year. And since that game, it has not been that at all. The Cowboys have ran the hell out of the ball. CeeDee Lamb has been very disappointing for fantasy. Amari Cooper's been banged up, so you can tie a little bit of his lack of production on that. Probably, he did have a nice touchdown catch last week, but as a whole, you're if you have Amari Cooper, you're feeling probably pretty let down so far this year too. And Dak's been good; he's been fine for fantasy. He's got it done, but it's just that's why I don't like coming into the fantasy football seasons trying to like project that and think we know that, and then rank players based on information we think we know that we don't. But I don't know. It's just a rant. But at the end of the day, Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb are both really good players. CeeDee Lamb might be a good trade for target right now. I mean, I wonder what people's temperature is on CeeDee Lamb that have him. Like G in our league, in a keeper league, he kept CeeDee Lamb. He was really high on CeeDee Lamb. He's got him on his bench this week. Just to give you an idea of where people might be.
Because it was like 2 weeks ago, I was telling somebody in chat like, hey, CeeDee Lamb, he wanted more consistency because he had Mike Evans, and Mike Evans is like really up and really down. And I was like, hey man, go see if you can get like CeeDee Lamb back, and maybe there's a piece that'll swing it either way to make it, make someone bite. But mostly because I was so big on CeeDee Lamb, I still am. But like my big thing with CeeDee Lamb was consistency, and like just hasn't really been that. Like last year, even when he didn't have like a great week, he was getting you like 8 to 10 points every week, and that was where like his floor was so high that his like end of season production was like really nice with a few really nice games mixed in.
Right.
I would say Dak Prescott, we have to remember to miss some time, and I think he has taken a little time to get up to speed, but I mean, I think he's looked for a couple games now. I think he's looked like he's back. So I'm wondering if this is more like Dallas's defense is allowing them to run the ball a little more too. Like I wonder if there's like a little bit of both there. Zeke's looking a little bit better. They're holding opponents to a respectable, point total on the other side too.
I do think that's it. I think the Cowboys defense is playing better than we thought they would. They seem to be improving. Diggs seems like he might be one of the better cornerbacks in the league at this point. He's playing really well. And if Dallas can, it seems to me it's a choice by the coaching staff and how they want to approach games. If they don't have to sling the ball, they would prefer to keep it on the ground and control the clock and run when they can. And it's what they've done the past couple of weeks. Zeke's production has went up, and honestly, Zeke's looked pretty good. Zeke's still not prime Zeke. I'm telling you, he's not. But he's still a good running back, and Dallas is good at running the ball. So it's worked out. It's worked out for him.
Well, they added those two safeties that used to play in Atlanta too. I think they've not been great, but they've been good back there and helped out with shoring up the back end of that defense. And then they drafted Micah Parsons, who they feel so good about. They cut Jalen Smith this week. Jalen Smith got paid before Dak Prescott did. I don't know if you remember that, but when Dak was demanding money, and then I think they franchise tagged Dak that next year, but they paid Jalen Smith before Dak, when Dak was asking for money, and then
right,
and then now they're done with him. So I think that says a lot about how they feel about Parsons, and I think that defense is starting to feel a lot different.
Yep. Hockenson or Knox this week? That's interesting. So, Knox is that hot hand right now. Scored himself a few touchdowns over the past few weeks. Had some nice targets. I think I'm playing Hockenson still. Let me check the latest on him, but he is expected to play, I believe. I just want to see if anything new has came out. Adam Schefter reports that Hockenson is expected to play in Week 5. He was limited in practice on Thursday and Friday, so he's a little bit banged up. But man, I just can't picture a world where I'm sitting Hockenson if he's active.
No, I mean you have him because you thought enough of him to draft him at that spot, right? Like he was going and the second tier of tight ends, and Knox has been good. I mean, we really like Knox. It's just one of those. Knox is a very good option if you went zero tight end draft strategy, but it's just hard to start him over Hockenson.
Right.
Week to week
We've
is
got so
wild.
many tight ends. We've got so many tight ends that are relevant right now because so many tight ends have had in the last 2-3 weeks have had good games. That it's that position is very up in the air right now as far as like, are these guys going to be the type that produces here and there and has a couple good games and you think they're now someone that you can play and trust, and then they fade and they are super inconsistent? Or are guys like Knox or Gesicki or Dalton Schultz, or some of these guys that have had a couple good weeks in a row, are they here to stay? Are they actually going to be able to do this throughout the entire season? You don't expect these guys every week to score touchdowns. Can't happen every week. But are they going to be fairly consistent throughout the season? I think guys like Knox and Schultz and Gesicki, group of guys like that are sort of in that conversation right now. I want to see it again. I want to see another week of it. That's why I would play like a Hockenson, for instance, this week over Knox. Not that Knox can't have a good game. It is Kansas City. Should be a lot of points scored in that game. But pick 2 in PPR, CEH, AJ Brown, or Damian Williams. AJ Brown, I'm probably going to play. No Julio Jones. AJ Brown has been in practice as well. It's not one of those situations where he's active but hasn't really been in practice much. I feel pretty good about him. And then, for as much as Dubs and I have been dogging CEH for the past couple of weeks because we just don't think he's a very good special player, he's obviously in a great situation with Kansas City, and that's why he has most of the value he does. He's had back-to-back 200-yard games. I'm probably going to play CH and AJ Brown. I'm probably going to wait a week on Damien Williams, even though I think I do like his situation right now, and I think Damien Williams has looked pretty good in the limited amount of work he's had. But we really don't know, too, if he's going to be the dude for Chicago. Khalil Herbert's a rookie there that I think they like. That's looked pretty good in preseason. He might get more work than we expect. It's just the unknown situation, so probably going to play Clyde off his 2 good weeks and play AJ Brown. You differ there, Dub?
No, I agree. I do. I'm pretty high on Damian Williams' opportunity, but that's all it is right now. So, I mean, I think Damian Williams is a guy we were talking about like way before the Montgomery injury, where it was like, this guy is a good football player that opted out of a year. He wasn't hurt or anything, and he was a pretty good football player, gaining a lot of steam with Kansas City. And I know that offense carries a lot of weight, kind of like you were just talking about with Clyde. But if Damian Williams is getting a good majority of the touches in the Chicago backfield, I think that's going to end up being really valuable. I think he can end up being a very nice addition.
Yeah, if Damian comes out of this game with 16, 18 touches, a few targets, catches a few balls, I'm going to feel really good about being able to play him as an RB2 until Montgomery comes back. And I hope this isn't the week where CH dupes us, because we've been saying we don't really care for him all that much and would find other options if you had him throughout the weeks. And that worked for a couple of weeks, and it didn't work for a couple of weeks.
It's true. Well, so that's how it goes, right? So he's going to just shit the bed this week against Buffalo.
Right.
And then we're going to be like, Buffalo's got a good defense.
Yep.
I mean, the problem with CEH isn't that we're not saying we never expected him to produce. It's more that, like, you had to get him so high in the draft that, like, you're disappointed. Right. That's shootout potential, right? Kansas City's defense has been pretty bad. I understand the Knox question. Bad. It's been really bad over there.
Oh, that's why I'm saying, yeah, it's a nice matchup to have Knox against Kansas City because, yeah, that defense has not been very good. I mean, I feel like they get bailed out too much on the excuse of it's Patrick Mahomes' offense, and they're foot to the floor at all times, and so the defense is on the field a lot because of the way the offense plays. Of course, that carries some weight, but like not enough. The defense isn't good. At least they haven't been up to this point this year.
It's true.
I mean, I'm always a little bit nervous about betting on a quarterback to have 3 touchdowns in a game, to throw 3 touchdowns, but at plus 140, I bet Josh Allen to have 3 touchdowns today against Kansas City.
Well, I understand Kansas City's offense is dynamic, right? But like there are a lot of drives that they have, unless Tyreek Hill's just out there going in, which he did last week. But like every other week before that, it's been more of like a West Coast feel. It's like we're gonna take the underneath stuff that's available. We're gonna hit Travis Kelce 8 times. Like that's just how that goes. And so like those drives aren't that quick. Like yeah, they're putting up points and they're moving the ball, but like their defense still gets a break. It's not like they're hitting home runs all the like left and right.
Right. Who should my wide receiver 2 be and flex this week? Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb, Swift, Damian Williams. I know this is going to feel really tough to start CeeDee Lamb, but I think I'm playing Keenan Allen and CeeDee Lamb. But you know what? That's an upside play. Like that is not providing you with floor. Keenan Allen provides you with a floor, but if you wanted more safety, you're probably not playing CeeDee Lamb. You're probably going to play Swift or Damian Williams over CD. I think it's Keenan Allen is in there, and then between those other 3, you can make an argument. But I'm typically the kind of guy that wants to go for all the upside, and so because of that, I'm going to play CeeDee Lamb. How about you, Deb?
I mean, I think I like Swift over Lamb.
Okay, it's totally fair.
There's been, so we know Hawkinson's going to be a little banged up too, and then playing in Minnesota is going to be bad news for the Lions too. And I think the Lions should be playing a little bit of catch up. Cook being out's going to help with that a little bit, but
yeah.
Goff dumps off to the running backs. If you're getting half or full PPR, I think that actually is a good thing for Swift, even if he's not getting like chunk yards on that. Like there's some receiving ability too. So I like that you're getting the floor, but you're also taking some upside there with Swift too. So I think that those would be my 2 picks.
Yeah,
I love CeeDee Lamb the player though.
Yeah,
I want him
Swift,
to be good.
Right. I don't necessarily disagree with that, going with Keenan Allen and Swift either. I don't disagree with just waiting for CeeDee Lamb to go ahead and have himself a game before you feel confident about putting him back in your lineup. And we just touched on Damian Williams. We like Damian Williams' potential quite a bit in this stretch without Montgomery, but unless you're in a situation where you have to play him, like we're in a 14-team league and I am playing Damian Williams as my running back 2 because it's a super, that league's thin. There's a lot of teams. But if you can afford to wait a week, I just prefer to. I usually prefer to in these situations to just kind of wait and see what happens. I mean, Juba Hubbard is a great example of this. Just this past week, everybody believed, including us, we thought that he was in line for a lot of work and was going to be productive, and he was all right. But you didn't get anything like what you hoped for from him.
No,
because they played another guy, they played another running back as well, and more often than not, when the main dude goes down, that tends to be what teams do. Outside of like a Madison, where Madison gets the workload, like not many teams just give it to the next guy down the list. But you're right about Swift. Like, what's a bad game for Swift? A half PPR, full PPR. A bad game for Swift is probably like 6-8 points, and then he has up 20-point upside because he's done it 2 weeks already. Yeah. Whereas CeeDee Lamb doesn't. I mean, CeeDee Lamb, he just showed like he has no floor.
Yeah,
so
it's weird because you're getting a little bit of both, but like, I think you're looking at CeeDee Lamb like could have a big game. I mean, I just pulled up CeeDee Lamb's stats. Like week 1, he had like 12 targets. Like that could happen again. I know he's been in a little bit of a lull, but like, yeah, I think there's more good to come for CeeDee Lamb than bad. But it's week to week. These week to week decisions are tough. I mean, what we're doing is we're looking at players that we have very specific feelings on long term, or like what we think their overall season's going to look like. But like week to week is a lot harder to kind of decide like, okay, well, this player could score between 6 and 14 points, and this player could score between 4 and 22 points. And it's like,
Right.
well, what do we think's going to happen? What's most likely? And I know you guys probably understand that too, but like that's a tough decision. It's like, okay, well, this guy's got a big range, but who do I think actually scores more points? It's so tough sometimes.
Yeah.
Those are good options,
Tilting.
though. They're good options.
Tilting is the best. There's nothing better than making those decisions that you tilt on for 2 days. Like, who do I play? Who do I play? And then you pick the guy, and then the game start, and the other guy you didn't pick scores the touchdown right away. Like on the first drive, you're like, "Are you kidding me?"
Right, right. Well, like, so I mean, like, I'm
Where's my
week to
beer?
week. I'm week to week too, to an extent. So I get it. I had drafted OBJ as my fourth receiver, and Cal Ridley didn't play this week. But I was looking at four receivers that I feel very good about season long. I have Tyreek Hill, Cal Ridley, Courtland Sutton, and OBJ. And I'm like, okay, I get to start those guys every week, and I feel really good about it. And then this week rolls around, and three of those four matchups are in red for me on the app. Like you guys know what I'm talking about. So I'm looking at it, and I'm like, woof. Well, so then
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, OBJ doesn't have that chemistry with Baker, and people have talked about that probably too much, but it's real. Like Baker missed OBJ on what would have been an easy touchdown last week, and that would have things feeling a lot different right now. But I felt obligated, and I went and made a move for a guy that had a better matchup with more upside, because it's not because I don't think any of those guys could produce this week. It's because I find it unlikely that all three of them will. So I kind of managed my dice roll a little bit, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take two dice rolls on a bad matchup, and I'm going to put somebody out there that's more likely to hit this week. And I went and made a smaller trade, which is very uncommon in today's fantasy world. Everyone wants the big name, but
Mm-hmm.
I went and I traded a handcuff running back for Henry Ruggs, and we're both happy, and I feel a lot better about my matchups overall this week. So I get the week to week stuff. It's hard, man. It's hard to look at a list of red on your lineup and be like, man, feeling pretty good about my chances this week.
I mean, I'll ask it for the chat if anybody's in here and wants to answer it for me. I've got Joe Mixon, who I did not intend to start this week because I went pretty. I drafted a few running backs in the first half of the draft, so I've got like a Kareem Hunt, a Darrell Henderson, and I'm playing both those guys. Obviously, Henderson's game's already happened, but so my plan is to sit Joe Mixon and not start him in my flex this week, and instead we run a 3 wide receiver plus a flex, so our wide receivers are a little deeper. And I'm probably going to play like a Jalen Waddle this week over a Joe Mixon because I'm really concerned about what his workload's going to be today. I from the reports that were coming out this morning and yesterday, it sounded like he had a good chance to be active, but that it was going to be on some sort of limited role, and that's all the information we get. We don't get any more information than that, so it sucks because that guy could go out there and get. He might play for like 12 snaps, or he might not play at all, or it could just be most of his normal workload and surprises us all. Coaches aren't gonna give you any more information than they have to.
Well, and the
So like
worst
that's a
part
decision I'm tilting on.
well, the worst part about it too is that even if Mixon gets 10 touches this week, like Green Bay's defense has already been sus, would I guess the quickest way to say it. But then they're minus their best DB. So like since he's moving the ball, like it's just a thing. Since he's going to be
Yeah.
moving the ball, and so like on 10 touches, does Joe Mixon get, 4 opportunities to fall into the end zone?
See, I think he's a guy that needs some volume. Just the Cincinnati is not the most efficient running the ball. That offensive line has been sus for a few years in a row. They've not been good for a few years in a row, and Mixon requires some volume because he usually needs, like, he gets those breakaway runs, but it takes 15, 20 touches to find a couple here and there.
Yeah.
And so, like, on Joe Mixon on a limited workload, with that in mind, it just, it feels like a 3-point day.
Sure.
But what if we see him, like, if he starts the game, if on first snap he's out there, I'm gonna be real salty that I didn't start him, because if I see him on first snap, I'm going to assume he's probably going to be playing for a lot of that game.
I mean, I get it though. Like, I'm probably doing the same thing you are. I haven't seen anybody pop up with an opinion on chat yet, but like, Waddle's probably the decision, and then you're just looking at it like, even with a few touches, Like Mixon could end up having a day that you're looking at like, man.
Yeah.
Some of those, I like the volume argument too. Like, it's just for me, if Mixon's able to suit up and take the field in any aspect, like he's probably most likely to try to pound one in if they're short. And with them, I think being able to move the ball, he has some opportunity for that. But like, not something you necessarily want to just invest in is like a few goal line carries for your whole fantasy day. Like that's just rough. But there's volume guys out there. I mean, even some of the bigger guys like Chubb, Henry, like those guys are what they are because of the volume. Like they're hitting big runs and they're looking good, and they make. I mean, but the thing is if those guys are out there getting 12 carries, like yeah, they're turning 2-yard runs into 4-yard runs. But like, what does that end up being at the end of the day, when they have half the opportunity to hit those 20, 30-yarders?
I know. These are so tough to deal with. That's unfortunate. I'm seeing the Twitter doctors out here. I'm looking at Twitter right now, and they're saying that and Bengals beat reporters saying that they expect him to get a decent amount of carries this week, and the Twitter doctors are saying that with the injury he had with the low grade ankle and not the high, that it is it's not a surprise that he can play in today's game, but that there's significant risk. It's like, oh yeah, no kidding, there is. Antonio Gibson or James Conner? I mean, I'm gonna play Gibson over Conner, but is there any team in the league that's better at having goal line carry opportunities than Arizona? I mean, Kenyon Drake made his entire fantasy season last year off of goal line touchdowns, and he wasn't even good at it. He would get 2 or 3 carries in a row and finally punch one in, but he had that all year last year, and look at what James Conner's been doing. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how this team always finds themselves on the goal line, but they do. 18 touches last week, 18 carries last week, sorry, 2 receptions, 12 total touches the week before that, but really not efficient at all for James Conner. Pretty low yardage totals with those many touches. He's just had the touchdowns. But I'm gonna play personally Gibson just because I think he's so much of a better player than James Conner is.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I mean, like Gibson's been on the report for a few weeks and he's been producing too, so I'm not gonna slight him too much. I think some of it feels weird because they're calling it a shin injury, and like I don't know how much we really know about that. Like when you hear something new, it's like, okay, well, I'm not quite sure what that means, but yeah, Gibson's a lot better. Plus you've got Chase Edmonds is out there involved too. Like Arizona's offense is just kind of a wild card.
Yeah. Ayuk, Tim Patrick, or Renfro? Well, as far as the player, I like Brandon Ayuk so much more than those other 2 guys, but you can't start Brandon Ayuk this week, I don't think. He just hasn't. He's been on the field a lot more, and that's good. But it's a new quarterback. I think Ayuk had 1 catch last week. You can make the case that maybe the new quarterback change will be better for him, and no George Kittle. Maybe that's better for him. But I have Ayuk, and it's a hold for me. I'm just kind of waiting to see how it plays out this week and hoping for the best, but I'm not starting him. I think Tim Patrick and Renfro both provide you with definitely Renfro does, but I think even Patrick with Teddy B, I think they both provide you with some safety, with some sort of floor and upside. Patrick's got more upside than Renfro does, though, I think. Renfro's that sort of safety valve, 50, 60, 70 yards, and probably not scoring, but he did last week. That can happen. Between those 2, W, you got a preference?
I like Renfro. I was talking about him a little bit after the last game, and what was interesting to me about Renfro is his involvement in the red zone. I think it had been safe to kind of discount him as far as like touchdown opportunity goes, but like the broadcasters drew a lot of attention to it too, which probably means that defenses are, if they weren't, they're already very aware of it. But they've been running what they were calling a China route, is what Greasy was calling it on the broadcast.
Hmm.
And he can run a couple there, but what they're doing is they're stemming off of it. So this China route, what he's doing is he's running a flat, so he's just kind of running to the sideline, and then he turns it into like this up fade kind of a look, or up corner route kind of a look to it, and then he stems off that and cuts in too. So it's this like it's like sorry, it's like this sideline route that he then cuts up and then cuts into the like a post almost, and they're using that inside the 5 or inside the 10, and it's really weird, but it's been working. And then what they've done to complement that is they've also had him like fake the post and cut back out, and they're just playing off of it a lot. They're giving him a few different options on that look, and defenders kind of get caught in space not knowing what to do. Long story short, the guy's got 2 touchdowns in four games, and I think that that's a big part of that. He also just missed one, I think, week 1 on the same route. He came a yard short, I think it was. So I feel a little different about Renfrow than I did coming into the year. It's just kind of weird. It's like a new element that they've added, but it's been working, and it's got me a little higher on Renfrow, I think.
Yeah. What do you do with Tanyan? I mean, do you have another tight end option, or are there people on your waivers right now that you can pick up before the game? And if so, what are some of the top guys you got? Like if you've got a Dalton Schultz or a Knox or a Gesicki, or maybe some other guys that are available, if you got some guys like that, you could definitely consider picking one of them up and playing them over Tanyan this week. He's been incredibly disappointing. The thing with Tanyan is, he's tied to Aaron Rodgers, and of course he could have a touchdown at any moment, but hasn't really been working out for him so far this year. McKissick or Gainwell? I'm going to play McKissick over Gainwell. Gainwell's been a nice piece. He's been more involved and definitely involved in the passing game. But so is McKissick, and I just feel like for now his role is more defined and reliable, that he will be involved in the game, whereas I don't know for sure that Gainwell will be. But I tell you what, I will say, if we have yet another week of Miles Sanders not being involved and not getting much work and Gainwell's out there quite a bit, we could potentially start to see a trend here where there might be a shift, where Gainwell stays, like maybe starts to become like a true split backfield.
Which would be very interesting.
It would be. McKissick's been a little bit of I think his fantasy stats might be not telling the whole truth. He's had multiple games where he's had this one big play that really blew up his fantasy day. And without that one play, like it's not anything exciting. But I'm still going to play McKissick over Gainwell. Titans defense or the Panthers defense? I'm so bad at remembering these matchups off the top of my head that I always have to pull them up. And I know that, and I tell you that I don't ever want to play the Titans defense, really. But, yeah, I'm going to play the Panthers. Panthers against Philly. Titans against Jacksonville. I mean, look, Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence has been throwing all the interceptions, and that's been great if you're playing a defense against them. Jacksonville showed something interesting this past week that they haven't done up until last week, and I don't know if it's going to be a trend or if it was a one-week thing, but they used a lot more read option with Trevor Lawrence, and he ran a lot more and looked pretty damn good running the ball, didn't he?
Yeah.
I thought he looked pretty good. And when they did that, the offense was much more productive. It actually even opened up holes and lanes for James Robinson. And then James Robinson had a good game. If they continue to do that, Jacksonville might actually be able to move the ball a little bit better than they have been. And obviously, if they're running the ball and Lawrence is using the read option, just, scaling down the passing a little bit, a little less interceptions to be available. But I'm gonna play the Panthers defense.
Yeah, I like Panthers defense overall anyway, and Philly's offense isn't really threatening to me. We're going to be talking about Carolina's defense a lot more when Gilmore gets on the field too. I think that's going to be pretty nasty.
Yeah, if Gilmore's still Gilmore, he comes back pretty healthy. That is a massive upgrade for the Panthers defense after losing their rookie corner.
And putting Henderson at the number 2 could make him quite a bit better too. Because he's been out on an island with Jacksonville, and putting him in a number 2 slot, surrounded by some guys he can rely on. That they've got some pass rushers there too with
it makes it interesting.
Brian Burns and I'm missing somebody, but Carolina's defense is a little sneaky. Renfro or
So
Chenault. Chenault's
mhm.
probably got a more upside. Plus, I think we would both be thinking the same thing that Shark's out, so there's additional opportunity there. Um,
Yep,
it's
I'm playing
Chenault.
Chenault. Hmm.
I like Renfro. I just got done saying I like Renfro, but Chenault.
Yep.
Chenault's good.
Yeah, they are a similar type of player in their floor. Like they provide some safety, especially in a full PPR league. But it does seem like Chenault is the one that has more upside. He gets some deep looks. It's kind of been consistent. Like he'll get 2 or 3 deep looks every game.
We don't. I mean, like it kind of. I don't know. We always feel weird. I think talking about like defenses, but is Carolina's defense like one of those sneaky ads that you could go pick up because we do think they're going to get better?
I'd thought about that, and they could be. It's just it's tough in most leagues to like. How often are you gonna pick up a defense and sit on them, a second defense? It's tough to do. If you're in a situation where you can, and you're like streaming defenses every week, and you have people on your bench you don't care about, you could add the Panthers and sit on them because I do think that's Hey, thanks for the sub. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Um, I do think that there's real potential there with Gilmore. We know how this goes when a defense has a very good corner, like a top tier corner, like Gilmore was before he got hurt and hasn't been playing. So we don't really know, right, if he comes back, how he's going to look or how long it might take him. But if we just assume by like the second week Gilmore's back to himself, then damn, dude, that defense gets a lot better.
Yeah.
It has to with a corner like that.
They're already. I mean, they could be owned in your league because they're already a top 10 defense, but they're only owned in 55% of leagues. And their upcoming schedule after this week is Minnesota, the Giants, the Falcons, the Patriots. And then you get into a little more murky territory with like Cardinals, Washington, the Dolphins. But I mean,
Yeah.
overall, their schedule for the next month is pretty appealing for a defense that's already been pretty solid that gets a significant upgrade. Something worth
Conklin
mentioning.
is Conklin is your other option there, Connor. Unfortunately, both those guys are similar cases where, like with Conklin, he was really nice. That was it 2 games ago, heavily involved, but then that didn't repeat. When I have two tight ends like that, the way I make this decision usually is I tie them to like just a quarterback that I trust more, and I think that's probably pretty obvious. I'm gonna go with Rodgers. I don't want to have to start either one of those guys if I'm being honest. Like it's not an ideal situation. But I'm probably going to start Tunyon and just hope that he might find the end zone this week.
It's a big part especially when you get in. We've talked about that, but when you get into like third tier tight ends, like it's touchdowns. Like that's just what you're doing. And
Yeah.
Tanyan's done it.
He
But
has. Well, the thing is too is there was even a week he didn't get in the end zone, but he had the target in the end zone. I think it was I want to say it was actually like a pass interference or something on the defender that like didn't allow Tunyon to make the play that it looked like he was going to be able to make. He's had a few opportunities this year. Allen Robinson or Myers. Oof, man, that is where we are at with Allen Robinson. That is unfortunate. I get it. I totally get it. Let me pull these up real quick.
I mean, the Patriots are playing Houston, so like
Yeah.
it has me
Okay.
feeling a little more like Myers. It's just kind of sad to say out loud. I mean, the thing is like I think there's some growing pains, but I think Fields has a lot more to offer than what we've seen so far. The question is when that's going to happen, when that's going to turn into the production. I think Allen Robinson is far and above a better player than Jacoby Myers is. I think he's an elite wide
Absolutely.
receiver. So I mean, we're just looking at we're guessing when it's going to happen is kind of all we're doing. I think if you're looking for some upside and you want to be right, you go Allen Robinson, and Jacoby Myers is going to be the guy that would get you some points. If Fields isn't that guy this week. But it's
Dude,
hard.
Myers has had double digit targets the last 2 weeks. Now, I will say
And
about
Houston's approachable.
They are. You like the matchup. But what I will say about the matchup, the Patriots are a team that if they can just run the ball, they will do it. And if I would expect a pretty decent day out of the Patriots defense this week. I wouldn't expect Houston to be able to move the ball too good against them. And if that's the case, like this might be a day where Damian Harris gets his 20 touches plus and all that, and it's just a slow, methodical thing. But they got to pass some, and Myers is their clear number one target in the passing game. God, I probably would play Myers, man, but I don't like that.
I don't
just
either.
Because Allen
Man.
Robinson is so much better of a player than Myers is.
I feel the same way. I think you go Myers, but like I do think there's better time, better road ahead for Allen Robinson. We just want to see it first. I think is where I'm at. Connor, I'm going Schultz this week over Fant. Pittsburgh's defense is just loaded with like alternative positions that can defend the pass, like Minkah Fitzpatrick, Devin Bush. Like they just have guys in positions that most teams can't rely on that can just cover. And Fant, we already said, kind of is a little less intriguing with Bridgewater at quarterback. So I'd be going Schultz. I'd be riding that hot hand. That's just my personal opinion. There's certainly room to disagree, but that's where I'd go.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably would too. Another one of those tight ends. Had a couple good weeks. We're hoping to ride that train and hoping that carries over again this week.
Yeah. I mean,
it's tough, man, because you watch Dalton Schultz play. He's not a bad player, but there's just nothing he does that's particularly special. Like a lot of the work he's got has just been like, the tight end's open. He's just kind of there. Let's give it to him. And it's kind of, those are the players that can disappear any week when they're not special players. They because they don't have to be involved. Depending on how the game goes, like they don't have to make it a point to get that guy the ball because we have to get him involved to win. That's not the case with guys like Dalton Schultz.
No, those are guys that are taking opportunities that are available because CeeDee Lamb's getting the attention. Like CeeDee Lamb's not producing because he's bad. CeeDee Lamb's not producing because they're trying. Like defenses are trying to stop that. Like that's what's happening.
Defense schemes to cover him, and then that just leaves other guys open. And Dallas isn't gonna, Dak isn't gonna force it. He's not gonna force the ball, which he shouldn't. But he's not going to force it to CD just because CD isn't getting a target. Dalton Schultz has nobody on him. Doop, here you go.
Should keep happening though. We've got Cooper and Lamb demand a lot of attention, rightfully so. I think there's going to be some opportunities there. That's where Dalton Schultz and Pollard come into play.
Yeah.
It is 1:00. We've got our game starting. For everyone that's still here, we definitely appreciate it. We're going to get some lineup set, get into some football here. One last thing that we've kind of touched on here and there, but I pulled up my DraftKings last night. There are a lot of home underdogs this week on DraftKings. I'm not telling you what to do with your money, but I'm saying it's worth taking a look. So there's some matchups there that I thought were interesting. It is gambling. If you need help, there are lines for that. I'm not trying to tell you to do something you shouldn't be doing, but if you are into that thing and you're doing it responsibly, there are some matchups out there with some favorable betting odds that caught my attention. So I would definitely take a look at some of these. There are a lot of road favorites, and that is a weird thing for fantasy football. Maybe put yourself together a nice little 4-leg parlay. Maybe win some money, take the old lady out to dinner. I don't know, but it's looking pretty good out there.
I feel like one day a week we need to set aside one stream a week for like some bets.
Oh, dude,
get some player props out there.
Hell yeah. Same game parlays have been pretty good for me too, man. Like I hit a same game parlay 3-legger on the Michigan game last night. Those have been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Boy, pulled out a squeaker there last night.
Whew. It was close, but we'll take it. But anyway, appreciate all the love, appreciate the comments. Alva, thanks for the sub. Anybody that is still here that's not subscribed, if you do want to get notifications, we do go live Sunday mornings and Tuesday nights. We have been on the fence about adding another day. That could be in the works here soon. But the more love we get, the more time we'll spend, shooting the breeze with you guys. But we love the interaction. We love the love. So, yeah, definitely hit that sub button if you want to get a notification when we go live. We're here for, all questions, feedback, comments. We're here for all of it. But thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. And good luck, everyone, this fantasy week.